All right, today we're going to talk about ratios. Okay, so a ratio is a comparison of two quantities. So we're comparing two things: miles and gallons, jumping jacks and minutes. We might be comparing green marbles to blue marbles. We're just comparing two different items and how much of each we have. Okay, so a ratio is just a comparison of two quantities. So there are four different ways we can write ratios. Our first example is we can compare A to B. Okay, so we would use a colon and we have comparing A to B. All right, we might also write that same fraction where the cowboy A is on top and we have A over B, still comparing, okay? We might use the word to, A to B, or we might say per, A per B, okay? So those are the four different ways we could write a ratio. So let's practice just a little. Open up your notes, and we're going to start over here. So it says, a bag has 3 purple marbles, 4 green, and 5 blue. Okay, so let's set up different ratios. We have purple to green. Okay, so how many purple? There were 3. How many green? There were 4. So I could write it like that. That's the most common way you're going to see a ratio. Okay, I could also say that as 3/4. I could also use the word 2, 3, 2, 4. And remember, we could say 3 purple per 4 green. Okay, so those are kind of all the ways we might write that ratio. On the next one, we have green to blue. So this time we have how many green? We're going to start with 4. Okay, and blue was 5. So we always go in the order that it says, because order is the most important thing about ratios. So if it says green first, I need to put the green number first. Okay, and remember that could also be written as a fraction or with the word to or the word per. Okay, so I'm just going to show you those two. And then the last one says blue to total. So for that one, I have how many blue? 5. And then I have to figure out the total. Well, how would I find total? Well, I'm going to add them all together. So total equals the purple plus the green plus the blue. So 3 plus 4 is 7, and 7 plus 5 is 12. So blue to total would be 5 to 12, or 5 over 12. Okay? And that is some different ways we could write ratios. Again, the biggest, most important thing is that order matters. So the order that it says in the question must be the order you use for your answer. We are going to label. So you see the labels already there. Purple was there, green was there. So we are going to label our ratios always. And we are going to try to always find our total. Okay, and remember we do that by adding all the parts we have together. So there are some different ratio situations we're going to talk about. These are 3 different ones from STAR, and they're all solved a little bit differently. So I'm going to show you all the different ways. So the first one says, Samuel can do 85 sit-ups in 5 minutes. John can do 57 sit-ups in 3 minutes. Which statement is true? Okay, well, the first one says Samuel can do more sit-ups because 85 is greater than 57. Well, the problem with comparing the 85 sit-ups and the 57 sit-ups is that it's not really fair if Samuel gets 5 minutes, but John only gets 3 minutes. We can't compare their results if they get different amounts of time. So this sentence is not true or doesn't make sense because, again, we can't just compare the sit-ups. We have to include the minutes in our ratio. The next one, B, says John can do more sit-ups because 85 is bigger than 57. Again, just like letter A, it's not really fair to just compare sit-ups to sit-ups because they had different amounts of time to do their sit-ups. It's not fair. So we can't just compare the sit-ups. We have to include the time, okay? And then our last two both have ratios, and they say one is greater or the other one is more. So we need to figure out how could we compare our ratios to see who's more, who's greater. Well, what we're going to do is first we're going to create our ratios. So I'm going to start with Samuel. And remember, order matters, so I'm going to do 85 sit-ups first. And then a ratio of 5 minutes. Okay, so we had sit-ups and then minutes. Whereas John has a ratio of 57 sit-ups in 3 minutes, okay? And again, order matters. I put them in the same order, okay? So I have sit-ups in minutes, and I have comparing Samuel to John. All right, so Samuel versus John. Well, when I'm comparing ratios, I need to make them in our fraction form, okay? So when I'm comparing one person's results to another, I'm going to put them in our fraction form so that we can use our butterfly technique. So Samuel was 85 sit-ups in 5 minutes. And remember, that's sit-ups and minutes. I labeled my fraction there. And remember, John was 57 sit-ups in 3 minutes. So I'm going to grab my pink, and I'm going to say, okay, John was 57 sit-ups in 3 minutes. Again, that was sit-ups and minutes. Okay? And then how did we learn to compare two fractions? Oh, well, we learned to just butterfly. So I am going to butterfly corner to corner. And I'm going to say, okay, 57 times 5. So I'm going to come down here and say, okay, what's 57 times 5? Well, 5 times 7 is 35. Carry my 3. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 3 is 28. So for John, he's going to get a score of 285. And then I need to butterfly the other direction. So 85 times 3. And I'm going to say, okay, 3 times 5 is 15. 5, carry the 1. 3 times 8 is 24, plus 1 is 25. So Sammy's going to get a score of 255. So if we compare their scores now, who has a higher score? Who did more? Well, John did more. So we need to see which one says John did more. Well, this one says John can do more. So that means that D is out and C is our correct answer. So again, a strategy we already know how to do. We already know how to butterfly. All we had to do was create our ratios for each person and then turn them into fraction ratios. Okay? So something we already know how to do, butterfly. The next one is a little different. It says there are 63 dogs at a dog show. Well, that 63 represents the total dogs. So I'm going to label it total. The next part says the ratio, so we know we're using a ratio, of large dogs to small dogs, so my ratio is going to look like that, large to small, is 4 to 3. 4 to 3. So for every 4 large dogs, there are 3 small dogs, okay? So the question says, how many dogs at the dog show are small dogs? Okay? So we're going to create a little table. So we have, our table is going to be large dogs to small dogs. And remember, we want that to equal the total. So we write our ratio, 4 to 3. Well, if there are 4 large and 3 small, what's the total? 4 plus 3 would be 7. Is that the total we're looking for? 63? No. So let's start skip counting. So let's count by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36. Okay, and I kind of ran out of room, so hopefully that's enough. All right, on the right side, let's skip count our small dogs. So we have 3. Skip counting would be 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. And remember, how did we find our total? Well, we added them together. So 8 plus 6 is 14. 9 and 12 make 21. And notice this is also just skip counting by 7s. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63. So remember, we want our total to be 63 dogs. So there's my 63. And the question says small dogs, right? So we're looking specifically at our small dogs. We go all the way down here to where my total is 63. And we say, oh, there were 27 small dogs if the total was 63 dogs. Okay? Now, that's how we use skip counting with our ratios, right? So this one, we had 2 ratios comparing 2 people. This one, we have 1 ratio comparing large to small dogs with our total. So that's how those 2 are different. So in this one, again, we just skip counted all the way down till our total was 63. Now, for those of you that know your factors really well, know your multiplication, you could just say, okay, well, how do I get from 7 to 63? Oh, well, I could just multiply. So 7 times what is 63? Well, that'd be 7 times 9. So if you know the relationship here, then you can do the same relationship. If 7 times 9 is 63, you could do 3 times 9 is 27. So again, that's a quicker way if you know your multiples. All right, and then the last question we're going to talk about says at a store, the ratio, so again, there's our keyword ratio, of the number of limes sold to the number of lemons sold is 2 to 3. So again, on this problem, we have one ratio, and we're comparing limes to lemons. So we have limes and we have lemons, okay? And again, the ratio was 2 to 3. And then it says, complete the table to show the relationship between the number of limes and the number of lemons sold. Okay? We don't have a total problem in this one. Like up here, they told us the total dogs was 63. But in this question, there's no total. It doesn't give us a total anywhere. So we're just going to use our ratio. All right? So we're trying to get to 24 limes. So I'm going to skip count using that same method up here. I'm just not going to include a total. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, right? There's all my 2s, and I'm looking for that limes to be 24. Okay, there's my 24 here, there's my 24 there. And then I got to skip count my lemons to see what they would be in this box. So let's skip count my lemons. So I've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36. So I'm going to grab 36, and that's going to go in my first box. Okay. Again, 36 was my match there. And then in the middle, we don't have anything to fill in. They said at 42, it'll be 63. So then they're like, what will it be if the lemons are 108? So you could continue your list, keep counting by threes, adding 3 to get to 108. But I'm going to show you a different way in case you don't want to use skip counting, okay? So if you want to use skip counting, you could just keep going, no big deal. But remember, we can also use a proportion. So remember, our ratio was 2 to 3. So I'm just going to put that ratio here under my table, okay? And then we're going to pretend that this is our x, just like a proportion. So we've been practicing proportions in lab, so we should be ready for that. So we are going to multiply corner to corner. So we have 108 times 2, and we're going to divide by our third number. Okay? So 108 times 2 will be 8 times 2 is 16. Carry the 1. 2 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1, and 2 times 1 is 2. So this piece is 216. And we're going to divide by 3. I don't have any zeros to mark off, but I can label my cowboy this way. Okay, I could put my horse outside, set up my division, and I'm ready. Can 3 people sit in 2 chairs? No, but 3 people can sit in 21 chairs 7 times. That leaves 0. Bring down your 6. Can 3 people sit in 6 chairs? 2 times. So this answer will be 72, which was here. So 2 different ways to solve this. You could just keep on skip counting, and that'll be fine. Or you can use your ratio and set it up like a proportion. So we're missing x. You could say cross multiply corner to corner, divide by 3. Either method is fine. And that's ratios, guys.